What's up guys, I'm here with a new video, and in this video I'm going to show you how to install SQL Server on an Azure VM or on-prem VM. So as you can see on my screen that already I have VM and I'm going to install SQL on-prem on this machine, and I will give you overview how to install default or named instance, and also what are the configuration must be made so that you can connect to SSMS. So first thing is we have to do is to get a setup file. So if you're not having the setup file, browse to one of your search engine and just type SQL Server setup file. Okay, once you search for SQL Server setup, so basically you can just directly search for Microsoft SQL Server as well, but in my case I'm looking for SQL Server setup file, so I just directly typed it if you are not aware. Okay, so install SQL Server using your configuration file. So this is the first link which you can see, and you can also click on that link and you can download the ISO file. And but if you scroll a bit down, as you can see here, you will see SQL Server downloads Microsoft. So just click on that. Once you hit that, you will be landed on this page, and we have multiple options here. So just you have to select for SQL Server on-prem. As I mentioned that we have to install SQL Server, either you're using Azure VM, either you're using Hyper VM, either using your local machine or on-prem machine. Both are same way. So whenever you download the setup file and install the SQL Server, it is basically called as on-prem SQL Server. So I'll put this link in the chat window so you can directly download it from this website. Once you click this page, you can see the SQL Server 2022 is now available. So you have to fill your basic details. So in my case, you can see I am putting some random details. So make sure you give some random details here to avoid spam. So in my case, I have given random Gmail ID, random company address and everything, and whatever company shares and role you want to give it. So this is also called free trial version or evaluation version for SQL Server on-prem. So you can just fill all these details and you can just hit download now. Okay, so once you hit download now, ISO file will be downloaded. So in my scenario already I have the ISO file in handy with me. So I'll just show you where is that. So as you can see, sorry, not this one, I will go here, and if I click on bandage, as you can see I have already the SQL Server setup file here. Okay, the SQL Server 2022. So you can download the same version, the same same kind of file you will get. So what you have to do, once you have downloaded it, okay, from the link which I have provided, or you can directly visit as I showed you. So you can just click here SQL Server 2022 developer edition. In your case it will be evaluation or trial version, so no need to worry. So we'll just mount it, or you can also directly open it. So I'll just mount and I'll make sure okay, let me give the admin privileges. Sorry, let me log in with the administrator. As you can see, the SQL Server 2022 has been mounted, and I will hit install. So as you can see, so now click on S to proceed further with the installation. So I'll just minimize this so that we have clear view on this. So let's wait until the process start. I hope we are here now. So I'll just put this window in the middle and I will proceed further with the installation. So as you can see, the second option is our installation. So I don't have any other installation. So we'll be discussing about install SQL Server Management Studio, all these things. You can directly download it, SQL Server reporting services. I will also show you how this works and what are the facilities of this. In this video, as I told, that we are going to install SQL Server standalone SQL machine. So we have to click on the first option, new SQL Server installation, and once you click on that, the setup file will run. So as you can see that we have the setup file ready with us, and we have to go through all these steps one by one. So first thing, if you have downloaded the trial version, you will see the trial version evaluation, which is called. So in your case it will be evaluation, and if you want to go for developer or express, you can do that as well. I'll provide this setup file in the description below. So in my case I will go with developer version. If you have installed the trial version, probably you will be using the evaluation, but in my case I will go with express. I have the I have the SQL Server key license as well, but I'm not going to use that. And if you want to integrate through Azure, so basically we have Azure SQL managed instance. So if you want to integrate, you can do that as well, but in my case I'll just simply click on developer and I will hit next. So this is coming to the license part, and once you hit next, we have to accept all the terms and conditions. So just hit next. So all the check in progress, the prerequisites will happen. So if you want to further update, use Microsoft update to check for update. So if you want this, you can just check this. In my case I don't want to use this, so I'll just uncheck that and hit next. and once the task is completed and the status everything is completed, we can proceed further with the installation. So we are done. We have one warning, we can just skip that for time being and we'll hit next. If you want to integrate with Azure SQL extension, then you can do that. In my case, I'm not going to do that and I will click on next. Once done, so this is our major thing which we will focus on. So as I told, we have to install the SQL Server standalone. So I will select the database engine services. If you want to install analysis services, or if you want to configure scale out deployment master, then you can install this as well. But in this video, I am just installing the SQL Server. So I'll just select the first option and I will hit next. So this is the main thing which I will discuss. So please pay attention to this. So the first thing is default instance. So default instance is nothing but whenever you are doing installation and you are not going to change anything, it will just go by default with the setup file and it will name your SQL Server as MS SQL Server. Okay, whenever you try to connect through SSMS, you will be using your server name to connect this. Okay, so make sure that whatever name you give here, it should be recognized in the future, otherwise you can't connect it. And further, there are two ways to connect. There are two different ways to connect the default instance and named instance. So default instance, when you try to connect your default instance, you will just give the server names and it will connect it. But when it comes to named instance, if you just give the server name, it is not going to connect. Okay, so that is the reason why I am saying is be cautious while creating default instance or named instance. Okay, both are different thing. And also one more thing, when you are installing the SQL Server on an on-prem or domain joined account and you are giving access to your organization, so by default the SQL Server, when you select the first option default instance, it will go with 1433. So that is the default port if you have installed in default instance. And if you are going with named, it will change dynamically and you don't have control over it. I'm not saying you don't have control over it, but you can manually change the port as well by going to configuration manager. We'll discuss that in future, but for time being, you just know the difference between default instance and named instance, and I think so you are clear about this. And if you have doubt, you can just comment it down, I'll just reply over there. Okay, so I will go with named instance because I will be having multiple servers and I want to categorize or I want to name them so that I should be familiar on what machine my what SQL Server is installed. So in my case, as you can see, this is my SQL VM1. So I will mention as DB for SQL VM1. Now you will be thinking how I will categorize. I will show you that within a minute while connecting to through SSMS. As I told you, if you give this as a named instance, so what it does is if you just give DB, it is not going to connect. You have to give SQL VM1 then slash then DB. So that is how it is going to work. That is the reason why I'm giving here DB. So if it is named instance, you have to give the server name, the VM where SQL Server is hosted, and also the DB name, whatever I'm giving. So here, okay, so for best purpose, what I'll do is, I'll mention SQL DB, okay, SQL DB, so that we should not get any kind of confusion. And if it is named instance, you can just use the server name and it will connect as I mentioned. So in my case, I'm going with the instant, a named instance, SQL DB. So while connecting, I will use as SQL VM1 slash SQL DB. So I'll hit next. Once you hit next, all this leave it as it is by default. Don't make any changes until unless you are a pro user and you know what this service account means. Okay, so we are not going to touch this. Probably in future we'll discuss about the SQL Server agent and database. What is this NT service account? So NT service account is nothing but SQL will communicate with the machine locally. So this is called Windows internal network account, you can say in brief. Not in brief, like it is just an overview, so don't go in depth, just I am giving an example. So we have something more to do with that NT service account. We'll discuss that in later, but by default you can assume that SQL Server to communicate with this machine, it will use local NT service account. Okay, so leave this as it is and we'll hit next. Now the important part here arises is what authentication method you want to use. Okay, so Windows authentication means, suppose if you are into organization and you are using one domain account, okay, and if you just want to authenticate using that domain account, then probably you can select the first option. But suppose if you do want to use domain account and any named username and password, you can do that as well. Named username password means you can create one username by yourself and you can give access to that username and password. Suppose if you forgot, or if you don't, if you're not aware, you don't want to do it now, you can do it later as well. After installation, you will have full privileges to switch back to mixed mode or Windows authentication mode. So I'll just, for time being, I'll select Windows authentication mode and I will click add current user. Okay, so once I hit add current user, as you can see, my current user, this is domain user, and it is granted permission. So make sure you do that, otherwise the SQL will, you will not be able to connect it. Okay, and if you're going with mix mode, so it is similar. So SA account is the default account which is given by SQL Server when you manually install. So it is the default SA account. You can't change the username, but you can give the password. Okay, and also once you give the password, you forgot, you can later change it. Okay, but you can't change the SA account. So later, as I mentioned, if you once install the SQL Server, you can create as many user ID and password as you want. Okay, so I will just enable this as well, to make sure that everything works fine. So I'll give password and everything is done. Now I will hit next. Once you hit next, everything will be visible here, where is the root directory for this, where it is going to install, and all the things will be visible. So you can, if you want to have a look, just have a look, and if you want to change something, you can just go back and change it. I don't want to change anything, so I'll just hit install, because the last step says ready to install. And once I hit install, installation is in progress. Let's see how long it is going to take. Okay, so I'll do one thing. Anyhow, I have to show you how to connect the SQL Server using SSMS. So for those of you who are not aware of SSMS, SSMS is nothing but it is a kind of ETL tool, you can say, ETL tool, extract, transform, load data, this kind of thing. So it is used to connect to your SQL Server, to query your database, or if you want to insert some tables, if you want to create new table, if you want to create DBs, and many more other things you can do. Okay, so first, we have to download this. Okay, so what you have to do is open Edge browser first. In my case, already it is installed, but I'll show you how to download it. I'll put this link as well from where to install SQL Server Management Studio. Open new browser and type SSMS. Okay, once you open new browser and type SSMS, or you can just type SQL Server Management Studio, both are same. Click on the first link which you see, Microsoft Learn Download SQL Server Management Studio. Once you click on the link, as you can see, we are into Learn page, and if you scroll a bit, you can see this release note for SQL Server Management Studio. You can download from there as well, or download SSMS. This is the link, and once you hit this download button, the downloading will start and your setup file will be ready. Okay, so you have to just install that setup file and you have to log into your machine. So once you install that and once you open SSMS, it will look similar to this window. So I will just minimize this for time being, because I want to see that whether my installation is complete or not. Okay, so let's the installation, I don't know how long it is going to take. Probably it will complete within 2 or 3 minutes, so let's wait. So once the installation is done, I will show you how to connect through SSMS. So meanwhile, you can install SSMS and download, and you can open this window, or probably I will show you from starting. Let me close this for time being and let the installation complete once. So as you can see, the installation is successfully completed and everything is perfectly fine. Now once the installation is complete and there is no problem at all, so you can just hit close, and you can close this window as well. And now we'll proceed further with the SSMS tool. So I'll just open the SSMS tool so that we can connect to database and query the database. So as you can see, the SSMS tool I have opened here. Now what I was talking about, as you can see, when you select the server type here, database, because you have installed the the database SQL Server. Now if you put the server name here, as you know, I have given as SQL DB, and if I put SQL DB and try to connect it, it will throw me some error. As I told, as you can see, there was network related or instance specific error. The reason why this is coming is, as I mentioned, it is not named instance. Sorry, it is named instance. That is the reason. If it is default, okay, if you have installed it by default, you will just drop down here and your SQL Server will be present, and you will just give the server name. By default it will take it. Okay, so that is how it works. But when it comes to named instance, as I told, so I have installed on this VM. So what I have to do is, I have to mention here the SQL, okay, the SQL machine name. So in my case it is SQL VM1. then I will put slash and I'll put SQL DB, and when now I hit connect, it will connect to the database. So this is what I was talking about. When it is named instance or default instance, it will vary a lot depending on your use case. Okay, so make sure you should be aware of these things, because in future it is going to create problem when you are integrating or doing some of the things which is not possible or complicated, some kind of integration if you are doing. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. So once you hit test connection, as you can see, I have successfully connected to my database, and the username which I was talking about, you can see that user as well, he will be present here. So this is the user which I was talking about, yes account. So you can create multiple users since we have enabled mixed mode authentication. So this is how you have to install SQL and you have to query the database. I'll show you the how to query the database, and I'll show you the version as well. So I'll just hit new query and I will type select @ version to get the version details. Sorry. So I'll just run it, and you can see we'll get our SQL Server version name. Okay, so this is how you have to install SQL Server on a machine, Azure VM or on-prem VM or Hyper-V or Oracle, any kind of Windows VM, Windows Server VM. So you can see that we have successfully managed to install Microsoft Corporation 2022 Developer Edition, as I told you earlier, on Windows Server 2019 data session. So this my machine SQL VM is Windows Server 2019, so that is the reason why it is saying that Windows Server 2019. Okay, and the SQL Server version is 2022. So this is the complete video or guide how to install SQL Server on a machine. If you have any doubt or further questions or queries, you can just comment it down. Feel free to visit our website, discuss in the query section or comment section as well there as well. So that's it for now. We'll see you in another video with new educational or IT information technology.